Okay, so here we are with the prisoner's dilemma, which you may have heard of or may already know. We will learn this and then extend the concepts to other kind of game theory applications which are used typically to understand how multiple stakeholders deal with issues of sharing resources and so on. Obviously, we are still talking about sustaining the commons. A classic description of a social dilemma is captured in the prisoner's dilemma. This dilemma was originally developed in 1950 by Merrill Flood and Melvin Drescher working at RAND. RAND Corporation is an entity that does a lot of defense work and produces all sorts of interesting research work as well. The basic idea is as follows. There is it's from the US. There is a riot leading to plundering in the city by youngsters, and two suspects are arrested by the police out of the crowd. The two suspects did not know each other before the riots, and the police do not have sufficient evidence for a conviction. Having separated the prisoners, the police visit them alone, offering each one a deal for testifying against the other. This is a typical approach taken by the police and prosecutors, where they give deals to those who admit to some sort of a guilt and provide testimony against the others so that they can catch the bigger fish and let the smaller ones go in most cases. If one testifies for the prosecution against the other, so that's called a defection, and the other suspect remains silent, which means it's cooperation, so he's expecting that the other prisoner will cooperate, the defector goes free and the silent accomplice receives the full 1-year sentence. So this is how it works. You plead, you were there, you were guilty, and then the other one is considered. You say I saw the other one stealing, and then the other one gets evidence for getting convicted, right? Eyewitness. If both remain silent, both suspects will receive 1 month in jail for a minor charge of, say, disturbing peace. So they will only get 1 month if they both keep silent and don't admit to their guilt or participating in the plundering and so on. If each betrays the other, each receives a 3-month sentence. So both admit they were guilty and involved in disturbing peace or plundering, then they both get 3 months, right? So you keep silent, you get 1 month. You squeal against the other remains silent. She gets 1 year, and you both admit, then you get 3 months each. So there are options. So suddenly you are considering options about squealing against the other, and not so obvious that you will keep silent, right? Because if you squeal and the other one doesn't, then the other one keeps silent, then you get off free. Each prisoner must choose to betray the other or to remain silent. Each one is assured that the other does not know the decision before the end of the investigation. How should the prisoners act? This is a social dilemma. Let me have a sip of tea. My throat is feeling dry. The pollution level is very high in Mumbai. I've written an article on it in The Hindu, if you read about it. It's not all local pollution. The circulation, the warming of the Arabian Sea have changed the sources in a way that we are having also significant non-local sources adding to Mumbai pollution. Coming back to prisoner's dilemma, in table 4.1 we present the different possible outcomes of this action situation in a so-called payoff table. Depending on what the two individuals decide, there are 4 possible outcomes. In each cell of the payoff table, the payoffs for each outcome is in each cell of the payoff table, the payoffs for each outcome is defined. Playoff is something in baseball and basketball or cricket, but we don't call it playoff. We call it elimination, knockout rounds or whatever. Okay, anyway. So here is prisoner B with the options, prisoner A with the options. So both have the option of remaining silent or betraying the other. So depending on what they do, if both remain silent, if each gets 1 month in prison. If one remains silent and the other one betrays, then prisoner A is free for betraying the other, and prisoner B gets 1 year sentence. So it's a big choice. Betray, in this case prisoner B betrays, so prisoner B goes free and prisoner A gets 1 year if prisoner A remains silent. But if both betray, then each gets 3 months in prison for admitting that they were involved in the plundering and disturbing peace. Okay, you can add values to these. These are, you can think of it as normalized values. Sometimes there are actual monetary values you can track. You can add points in a situation where you are dealing with multiple stakeholders, negotiating and so on. So let's just understand this here. Player B and player A have the option of cooperating and defecting. So again, if both cooperate, they both lose because they get 1 month prison each. If one cooperates, so keeps silent, the other one defects, then the player B gains nothing. Let's say cooperate here is yeah, let's make sure we understand payoff table. So here in this case, prisoner B remains silent and prisoner A betrays. So that's how this table is. So prisoner B doesn't gain anything, but prisoner A loses 12 months, so gets 12-month sentence. And similarly, if player B defects and player A cooperates, player B gains. So you can think of this as gaining or losing depending on what it is. So both get 3-month prison, both are losing 3 points or 3 units of something you are thinking about, right? So let's look at social dilemmas as an action situation to connect to the last chapter where we defined action arenas and action situations in the context of institutions, which we defined in the second chapter. As alluded to earlier, we can view the social dilemmas described above from the perspective of an action situation. Let's use the ideas we have discussed so far to dissect the prisoner's dilemma. There are 2 participants we have who have equal positions. Both participants have a limited set of actions. They can choose between actions A or B. They have limited information about the participant, about the other participant, since communication is not possible. This is very common during interrogation, where 2 people involved or caught are separated and each one is being misfed or being fed misinformation. You can tell this person that the other person has defected and squealed on you, so you have to admit your guilt and reduce your sentence, or you can stay silent and get maximum sentence, and so on. So these are common tricks played by prosecutors and the police. Both participants have a limited set of actions. They can choose between actions A or B. They have limited information about the other participant, since communication is not possible. Both players know that the other player is in the same situation she is in. She is used by the authors here. Somehow when you think about prison and perturbation and plundering, you think men, but nonetheless. But so both players know that the other player is in the same situation she's in, but do not know what the other player will do. So they are taking a calculated bet. The players only have control over their own actions. The outcomes are defined clearly in the payoff table, and the evaluation of the outcomes is based on the material benefits for the players. So here you are playing blind and you are going to maximize your benefit, right? You are not going to assume the other player is going to keep silent and opt for 3-month sentence, so you can also keep quiet and take 3-month sentence, when you can betray and get off free and let the other person take a 12-month sentence, assuming the other player doesn't cooperate. If you were in, or doesn't defect. If you were in a prisoner's dilemma, what would you do? Would it make a difference if you knew the person even if you cannot communicate. So that's an additional factor. If two people are involved in robbing together, they may have made an agreement beforehand about what to do if they're caught. But here, you're in a crowd and you're caught, you don't even know each other. So now you're completely guessing what the other person might do. What does this say about information in an actual action arena? Indeed, you can be in the same action situation with two different individuals and have different expectations what the other will do. Okay, so now you are understanding the situations we'll be dealing with in real life when it comes to common goods, right? There is a huge noise in the background because there is some construction going on. I will see if the sound quality is okay and close the door if necessary. I have the window open and the door open for cross ventilation to avoid using the air conditioning, even though pollution is high, as I said. Coordination games fit into the similar mold framework of social dilemmas. Although the focus of this chapter is on social dilemmas, a related phenomenon is coordination. Which can be expressed in terms of a coordination game. Suppose that while driving a car on a dirty road, you decide to drive in the middle of the road since that provides the cleanest surface and protects your car, let's say. Then you see another car coming from the other direction. To avoid a head-on collision, what will you do? You have two options. You can go left or go right. If both drivers go to the right, so they go away from their own right, so the other person's right will be your left, so you both move in opposite directions. So if both drivers go right, i.e. from their perspective, from an onlooker's perspective, one goes right and one goes left, they will avoid a collision. The same is true if both drivers go left. So go right, go left, you have two options, the other person has two options. If you both do the same, then you avoid an accident. If the two do different things, then you have an accident. Most countries have an established rule for driving on a particular side of the road, which we see in a minute. If you are accustomed to driving on the right side of the road on the mainland of Europe, it can be confusing to drive in the UK, United Kingdom, where people drive on the left, and we do the same in India and other colonies like Australia. Crossing a road as a pedestrian in London can be dangerous if you are not used to driving cars on the left side of the road. So let me take this call. Sorry. Okay, so let's go back. That was a courier. Accepting parcels in the middle of a podcast is always an issue, but I cannot ignore the call. Okay, sorry about that. So let's look at the countries that allow driving on one side. So we have all the reds. The countries in red indicate where the cars drive on. Countries where cars drive on the right side of the road. That's most of the world, but the UK little country here has had a bad impact on all the other countries, because you can imagine manufacturing, putting the steering wheel on this side for a few countries as opposed to the left side for most countries is an unnecessary hassle. But some countries like Finland actually have switched sides along the way. So blue indicates where cars drive on the left side of the road. Okay, so in India sometimes you have a car that is from another right side driving country, so your steering is on the wrong side, so you are driving on the left but the steering is on the right. So then passing another vehicle and so on can be very, very tricky and dangerous. So in the coordination game here, the payoff table looks like this. So here we are dealing with not so much prisoner's dilemma, but a coordination of two people using the same common good, let's say the road. Okay, we'll define the goods in a more systematic way in a podcast later, in the same chapter. But in the meantime, player B has the option of going left or right, and player A has the option of going right or left or right also. So if both go left, they go, avoid the accident. In this case, let's say payoff is 10 and 10. If they both, one goes left and the other goes right, they both have an accident and 0-0 in terms of payoff. And if one goes left, the other goes right, other goes left, again you have an issue. So left, right, right, left. And if they both go right, obviously you have payoff for both that saves the accident from occurring. If you look at the payoff table for the table Battle of the Sexes game, where two people are involved, you can imagine where the descriptor Battle of the Sexes may have come from. One wants to go to a movie, other one wants to go to an opera. In this case, you are going to the opera or the movie to agree with the other person and not being alone, or not going to the movie or the opera alone. So you make a compromise. So this is a slightly different situation where you have player B having an option of movie or opera and player A having the option of movie or opera. Now you look at the payoff table. If both go to movie, but player B, let's say, wanted to go to the opera and not the movie, but compromised, then the payoff is less. It's 5 versus 10. So you are tolerating the movie and not going to the opera. And similarly, if both disagree, so one goes to the movie, other goes to the opera, neither one benefits. So you can think of the benefit as the benefit of the company and enjoying the movie or the opera together. And again, if one goes to opera and other goes to movie, both have no gain. Now you are thinking about more complicated non-market goods. You are getting to see something but by yourself, so you have less of an enjoyment, even though the insistence on watching opera by yourself is some kind of a choice you made based on your own benefit. But in this coordination game, you get, or you don't benefit from the company of the other, right? So that's the way to think about it. So if both go to opera, but this one has made the non-ideal choice, let's say, then the opera person gains, but the other one gains less. So both have a benefit of enjoying each other's company, but you are watching an opera instead of the movie. You get the idea. So this extends to other stakeholder groups, which I'll come back and do in the next podcast, because when you when you pause and resume, the clock keeps running. It says now 17:30 40 seconds, but I don't know how much is the pause in the middle, so I don't know exactly how long the podcast is, but I'm sure it's long enough. So let me pause here.